Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and in today's video, I will be reviewing X2, X-Men United. I thought I would use a different format for this video, where I just talk about what I did like and did not like, and certain story aspects, instead of just giving you the whole plot. Let me know in the comments section below if you prefer it this way, or if you would prefer me to go over the plot a little more. This movie was just as good as the first movie. There were a couple of things that were resolved in this movie that I had questioned in the first movie, and I'm glad that they touched on that. I really like that they basically had a resolution to Wolverine's story. We finally learned what happened, and it's nice to see that Wolverine finally concluded his journey as to finding out what happened to him before he lost his memory. We were given everything but one thing, and that centers around one line that was said by the main villain Stryker. He basically said that Wolverine has done horrible things before his transformation, and we are given no other hints as to what he means by that, so we might see more of that in the future. I know I said in my review for the first X-Men movie that I didn't have any issues, and then I blatantly pointed out issues. Well, in this one, I had only one issue, but I'll touch on that later. Everything else though made sense, and I would even go as far as saying that there were a very clever moment or two in the movie. One of the clever things that they did was how they broke Magneto out of prison. As you know, Magneto has the powers to control metal, and because of this, he is in prison within a special prison that is made exclusively out of plastic. No metal is permitted within the area. In this movie, Mystique finds out where Magneto is being held, and so, by using her powers to seduce one of the security guards, she poisons him with what I would assume are pills filled with iron. At first I didn't catch it, but as soon as it happened I realized what was going on. The next day, the security guard goes into the prison cell to give Magneto his food. While in the prison cell, Magneto senses that there are high amounts of iron in the security guard's blood. After realizing this, Magneto literally takes the iron out of the security guard's blood and escapes. What I originally thought it was that Mystique was disguised as the security guard, and she was just going to kick everybody's ass. But no, they went down this route, and I'm very happy that they went down that way. It's a very creative way of breaking him out of prison, and you honestly wouldn't expect this to happen. The second clever thing was basically the overall story. What I mean is that the main villain, William Stryker, is trying to use Cerebro against all of the mutants. What I mean is that Stryker made his own version of Cerebro, and he used mind control against Professor X, so that Professor X could use Cerebro because nobody else in the world could handle such power. In a twist, we learn that William Stryker's son, Jason Stryker, is now basically used as a voodoo doll. He has the powers to mind control people, and William Stryker uses Jason Stryker to mind control Professor X into using Cerebro and killing all of the mutants in the world. I also find this really clever, because again, Stryker has a clear motive as to why he's doing this, and it was cool that they went down this unique way instead of just trying to use this Cerebro by himself. It honestly seems like at certain points in the movie that the X-Men were genuinely going to lose. I also really like the fight scene between Wolverine and Deathstrike. It's another one of those fights where you wonder how the villain is going to be defeated. I really like the fact that the fight was basically evenly matched. But towards the end of the fight, you genuinely think that Wolverine is going to lose that fight, because he is being beaten pretty badly. Luckily, they are fighting in a room where Wolverine originally had the experiment done to him, so there was still liquefied adamantium in the room. At the end of the fight, Wolverine injects the liquid adamantium into Deathstrike's heart, turning her blood into adamantium. You could say that yes, it was a bit convenient that they were in the same room that happened to have the adamantium that would turn her blood into adamantium, but I can leave that aside because it was still a cool fight. I also really enjoyed the first sequence of the movie when Nightcrawler was going throughout the White House, just beating the absolute crap out of the Secret Service. It's kind of funny to see all these highly trained men trying to fight an intruder, and they suppose that they are fighting multiple intruders, even though there's just one and he's teleporting. Nightcrawler made easy work of all of them, and to be honest, it was kind of satisfying to watch. I also really like in the end how Jean Grey sacrificed herself for others. It was good in two ways. I'll explain some things that happened throughout the movie in order for my points to make more sense. Throughout the movie, we are seeing more of Jean Grey's powers, and we learned that as of late, she has been having a hard time controlling her powers. In the first part of the movie, we learned that she can hear what everybody is thinking or saying, kind of like Superman in a way, where it's just too overwhelming. So we have the basis that she can't control her powers very well right now. There are small instances throughout the movie where we see her slowly being able to finally control the raw power that she contains within her. Having her be able to slowly control her powers better and better throughout the film just makes the final part that much better and devastating at the same time. At the end of the movie, everybody escapes from Stryker's base, and the dam that was damaged earlier has started to crumble, meaning that everything in the area will soon be underwater, and that's obviously not a good thing for the X-Men. It's a very tense scene because you see the dam starting to slowly crack, and then the jets slowly start to fail, and then at the last moment the jet just stops working altogether and shuts off as the dam breaks open. We all see the impending doom, and then Jean Grey steps out and stops the water from hitting the jet. She lifts the ship as she is stopping the water, and before anyone could save her, she perishes to the water, freeing the X-Men. I actually found this very noble of her to do, and it was a good send-off because we were finally able to see that she was able to control her full power. She had such a hard time controlling her powers throughout the whole movie, and when they needed her most, she was finally able to control her powers and save their lives. It was hard to watch because it was nice to see her finally being able to control her powers, but it was only in her final moments. It was even harder to watch everybody's reaction to her death. It even brought Wolverine, of all people, to tears. It was just very hard to watch for everybody. I mentioned in the previous review that Storm's powers are very inconsistent. What I mean is that in the beginning of the first movie, they suggested that Storm could only use her powers if she has a connection to the sky. And then she actually needs to be able to visibly see the sky. And then later on in the movie, she uses her powers within a building where you clearly couldn't see the sky. I'm glad to say in this movie they are a lot more consistent. It is basically shown that Storm can use her powers anywhere, and I like that. There's not much else I can say about that besides the fact that it's nice to see that her powers are more consistent. Speaking of Storm, she got a lot more screen time in this movie than she did in the first one, and I'm very happy to say that. I mentioned in the first review that she didn't really get enough screen time, but in this one she's given plenty of screen time, and you realize that she's actually cares a lot for other people, especially children. I just really like the fact that we get more out of her character, especially for an actress of her status. I mentioned earlier that I had only one issue with the movie. It wasn't a huge issue, but it would have changed certain aspects of the story if this one thing didn't happen. So we have this character, and he's a new character in this movie, and his name is Pyro. He says in the movie that he cannot create fire, but he can manipulate it, which is why he always carries a lighter with him. Throughout the movie, we see that he has an edge, meaning that you don't want to get him angry, or else he'll show off and burn you. We saw in the first part of the movie that he and a group of his friends were being bullied, and so Pyro used his lighter to basically set the bully's arm on fire, but then Bobby steps in and freezes his arm to stop the fire. The scene sets up the fact that Pyro can be a loose cannon. Later on in the movie, after the school is raided by the military, Bobby, Pyro, Rogue, and Wolverine relocate to Bobby's house, where his parents live and his brothers. Once we get to his house, nobody's home, but of course the parents do come back, and they're obviously freaked out. we learn that Bobby's family had no idea that he has powers, and that he went to his school specifically for people who have these mutant powers. His family basically thought he went to boarding school. Of course, his family is shocked by the news that he is a mutant, and you can obviously tell that they can't accept the truth, especially his brother. I want to go on another little tangent. I really like the undertones of this scene, where Bobby tells his family that he is a mutant. A lot of people may or may not pick up on this, but this has a lot of themes of somebody in real life telling their family that they are part of the LGBTQ. Unfortunately, some families can't accept this about their children, and so they do some pretty nasty things like ban them from their house or whatever. And in this movie, they replace that with a kid telling their family that they're a mutant. It's a tough subject to talk about, and I feel like the X-Men seem to do it pretty well in this movie. As I've said in the past review for the first X-Men movie, I know the X-Men are known for talking about society in different manners. I like that it's touched on in this movie. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. So we're at Bobby's family's house, and Bobby tells his family that he is a mutant. And they do not like that, especially one brother in particular. Bobby's brother calls the police on them, saying that they are being held hostage by the mutants, even though we all know they're not. They're just trying to explain what is going on. Wolverine senses that the police are on their way, and so they try to get away, but unfortunately, the police arrive before they were able to make a clean escape. Tensions are high, and it gets to a point where the police tell Wolverine to drop his knives, when obviously he can't drop his knives because they were part of his skeleton. Admittedly, he could have just retracted his blades in hindsight, but honestly, he was protecting the other people. Because it seems like to the police, Wolverine is resisting arrest, the police shoot him, and one cop gets him in the head and knocks out Wolverine. You know what? Speaking of that, Wolverine being shot in the head in this movie, it is shown that he's blatantly shot in the head. And when he gets knocked out for a couple minutes, this seems wrong to me. I know in the last review I said I would pretend that this was like the first time I was seeing this, and I haven't seen the future movies, but I need to point this out. We have seen in other movies featuring Wolverine that he's been shot in the head many times, and they just bounce back off his head. So why is it in this movie that he is shot in the head, it knocks him out? I know back when this movie was released that nobody knew that he could just take a bullet to the head and be fine. Anyways, while Wolverine is knocked out, Pyro loses his mind and he goes nuts. He starts torturing all police cars and throwing fireballs at the police. Obviously, the police have to open fire because they're under attack, so that makes it even worse. And then that escalates the situation. So Pyro is just going nuts now, burning everything in sight, practically murdering cops. Rogue then decides that enough is enough, and grabs Pyro's legs, and it ends the situation. Rogue actually holds on to his leg for quite a significant amount of time. I'm surprised that it didn't kill him. Anyways, it's what happens afterwards that bothers me the most, and it's the fact that they basically forget that he tried to murder like 10 police officers. The only time they mention it is with an offhand joke 20 minutes later. You would think that he would be punished or the others would be snippy with him because he just tried to kill so many people when they are the ones trying to prove that not all mutants are bad. I just didn't like that, and they completely forgot about it. I think the reason why they forgot about it was the script. What I mean by this is that at the very end of the movie, Pyro joins Magneto and Mystique, basically insinuating that they are building a team now. It just makes us think that, oh, who else is part of the X-Men group going to turn against them? Pyro was part of the school, and now he's not. That is just going to make us think that who else could leave? And I feel like that was kind of a weird way of showing that point. In the end, this was another great movie about the X-Men. I watched the first one and the third one quite a lot, but this one I've never seen, and this was my first time watching it. It felt very consistent with the first movie, and honestly, it felt like the same movie, and that's not a bad thing to say. I like that we get to see more Jean Grey as a character, and to get to understand her powers and what is she feeling. I also like the fact that we got to see more of the Storm, and we get to understand her character as well. Yeah, there were one or two things weird about this movie, but if you forget about that, this movie is perfect. As always, Hugh Jackman did an amazing job as Wolverine, Sir Patrick Stewart did a great job as Professor X, and of course, Ian McKellen did great as Magneto. The next movie I will be reviewing is X-Men 3, The Last Stand. My favorite one, by the way. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.